the second letter of Peter. It's mentioned, okay, this is the second letter I wrote to you, so it's a clear, in a way, continuation of the first letter supposedly written by Peter. The evidence which we have at the moment makes it very hard to ascribe it to Peter if we assume that he was a Galilean fisherman. So the letter is written in a very or relatively polished Greek, and it has also some differences to the first letter of Peter. It's a 3-chapter, again quite a short part of the New Testament, and it belongs to the collection of 7 letters which we call the Catholic letters. And this is sometimes a little bit disturbing for non-Catholics that these are Catholic letters, but Catholic in the Greek means just for everyone. So a kind of general letters for a wider audience and not directed only to a specific community as the main letters of Paul. The 7 Catholic letters are first James, then we have 1st and 2nd Peter, then we have the 3 letters of John, and at the end we have the letter of Jude. And this is quite an interesting arrangement, because we have learned in the Romans video that the Pauline collection is sorted just according to length, which is quite easy. But this is not the case in the Catholic letters. There we have James at the beginning, and James is, according to this tradition, the brother of Jesus. And we have Jude at the end, which is again a brother of Jesus. So this is in a way framed by a family tradition. And then we have Peter and John. And these 3 figures, James, Peter and John, are described in the letter to the Galatians as the pillars of the community of the church in Jerusalem. So that means these are, besides Paul, the 3 important figures within the developing early Christian community, although there is a lot of doubt for all of them if they are really written by the persons to whom they are ascribed. And that's especially true for the second letter of Peter, who is often described as the latest writing in the New Testament. So it might be that it was written only in the first half of the 2nd century, although a minority still holds and gives sometimes good reasons that it might nevertheless go back to the 1st century, and even in a kind of Jewish Christian setting between 70 and 100 within Jerusalem.
Is there anything interesting in the letter, the contents? Or is it...
There's always something interesting. Otherwise, the books would not have made it into the canon or into a collection. No, the second letter of Peter is in a way the testament of Peter. So it's a kind of farewell discourse. It creates the image that Peter, at the end of his life, again reminds the Christian communities of what is essential. And he, in a way, alludes to his "I was with Jesus, I have touched and seen the living word, so I was with him at the Mount of the Transfiguration, and I have seen the heavenly glory with Jesus, and if we are connected to him, we will participate in this heavenly glory." And the second part is a warning against heresies, against wrong teaching, against wrong behavior. So a topic which is also shows up very often in these later writings of the New Testament. In the last chapter, it's a kind of apocalyptic outlook on the last days. And there you have this idea that the early Christians had the feeling, okay, Jesus will come immediately. So he's resurrected, but he will come back during their own lifetime. And obviously, with the course of time, this didn't happen. So they had to ask what's going on. And 2nd Peter gives a kind of explanation telling, okay, for the Lord, 1,000 years are like one day. So he will come. This is a message. He will come even if he's a bit delayed. And also interesting, it gives a summary, or it refers back to the letters of Paul and saying, oh yes, Paul has written some letters and they are not always easy to understand. But again, it shows that at this point there was obviously already a kind of collection of Paul's letter available. So again, there's a lot of dense theological thinking in this letter, which you don't find in other letters. So especially this idea that by our association with Christ, we will become, or we will have part in his heavenly nature, in his kind of godly nature, which is an idea which is otherwise absent in the New Testament, but features prominent in 2 Peter, and especially in the Orthodox tradition, Greek Orthodox and Russian Orthodox tradition. This is a very important element of Christian living to become Christ-like. We ourselves heard this voice come from heaven while we were with him on the holy mountain. And of course we know only Peter, James and John were with Jesus on this mountain. So this is a clear reference to something they have seen.
You say it's very possible that 2 Peter was not written by Peter himself. But if this book is testifying, I knew Jesus, I touched Jesus, and it wasn't written by Peter, does that not make the book very dishonest, like almost like it's lying?
I agree. You are touching a very sensitive point here. And there is a discussion within New Testament scholarship. And there are indeed this kind of apologetic attempts to say, okay, no, this is not a problem. This was done normally in ancient times. So if you venerate a person, you can write in his or her name. But actually, I'm not convinced that this is true. We have much more writings in antiquity which make clear the moment you discern this was not written by Plato, for example, or by some other famous philosopher, then it was not accepted within the canon and collection of their writings. And that it's a kind of forgery and that it tries to pretend a false picture. That's indeed a problem. Therefore, conservative Christians and this kind of, not fundamentalists, but people who want to take the Bible serious, they have a decent problem with this easygoing pseudepigrapha, so wrong attributing of letters. And normally you find all the arguments in favor of a, let's say, Petrine authorship within these more conservative circles of Christianity. And some of their arguments are quite good. And I think we should not dismiss this question so easily and settle with, oh, that's not a problem at all. I think it is a real problem.